Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Bud Light. Boycott Kills Bud Light closes aluminum can plant permanently. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from the Kent Reporter, Ball Corporation to close Kent aluminum can manufacturing facility. From Packaging Drive, detailed explanation on how the Bud Light controversy destroyed their can business, causing this plant to have to shut down. From Denver Business Journal, Ball scraps aluminum can factory growth, will close manufacturing plant. This is an interesting article. It talks about their production overall. They're closing the plant because of the Bud Light controversy. Beyond that, they're also canceling 2 new plants where they were planning to expand their aluminum can production, also because of this Bud Light situation. But this isn't the first manufacturing company to be shut down because of Bud Light. From the New York Post, glass bottling plants forced to shut down, leaving 600 employees jobless amid Bud Light controversy. And this went back to July. Manufacturers producing packaging like bottles and cans for Anheuser-Busch, for Bud Light, and their other beer brands are having to shut down because they see the business is not coming back. Ball Corporation even specifically mentions that they do business with Bud Light's competitors. But even with that, it's not enough business to keep the plants open. And part of the reason why they still can't keep the manufacturing plants open, even though this Ball Corporation does business with Anheuser-Busch's competitors, is because beer drinking has dropped off precipitously. A lot of it because of the Bud Light controversy. From NBC News, beer drinking in America falls to the lowest level in a generation. The boycott of Bud Light was just one factor in a year of industry-wide declines. So these manufacturers can't even handle producing packaging for the beer industry anymore. That's how bad it's gotten. Anheuser-Busch has started layoffs, but they haven't started laying off anybody else who actually makes the beer. This is from CNBC. Bud Light maker Anheuser-Busch to lay off hundreds of corporate staff. This went back to July. It was just under 400 people out of their 18 to 19,000 employees, and they still haven't laid off anyone that actually makes the beer. If the packaging companies are shutting down, you can't keep the can plants open, you can't keep the glass bottle plants open. How long before they start laying off the employees that actually physically make the beer that a lot of people are just not buying anymore? The loss in sales volume for Anheuser-Busch for the Bud Light brand is still 30% by volume nationwide, which means they're making and shipping a lot less beer. The closing of the can plant was announced back in November. The closing date was just announced. About 121 employees will lose their jobs in Kent starting February 29th with the planned closure of the Rexam Beverage Can Company, owned by and also known as the Ball Corporation. The State Employment Security Department announced the closure January 10th after it received a worker adjustment and retraining notice from the company. The expected beginning date of the separation is February 29th, with the number of affected workers at 121 because of the closure, according to the notice. And here's what the company said in the industry publication Packaging Dive about the Bud Light controversy. In 2022, 13% of Ball's overall sales were to Anheuser-Busch InBev and affiliates, which means like sister companies of theirs, companies they also own. And Anheuser-Busch is their largest reported customer. Its Bud Light brand has been boycotted by some consumers this year. The company's U.S. sales declined 13.5% in the recent quarter. CEO of Ball Corp, Dan Fisher, said during a third quarter earnings call that while Ball partners with Constellation Brands, which markets top-selling Modelo beer, that's the #1 brand now, not Bud Light anymore, and while they work with other major brewers, quote, the fastest return for volume for Ball Corporation is that Bud Light or Budweiser figures out something to put on shelves in place of that. So these guys are not expecting any kind of rebound in business until somehow Anheuser-Busch replaces all the lost business for Bud Light and Budweiser, as Anheuser-Busch InBev spends aggressively to reestablish the Bud Light brand. We'll benefit from that disproportionately as we've been adversely impacted by Bud Light. And here's how they explain their production system. Ball Corp is closing an aluminum can plant outside Seattle, scrapping plans to build a large plant near Las Vegas, and postponing construction of another in North Carolina amid softening can demand. So they've got this one plant completely shutting down and two major plants they were going to invest in that are not going forward. The Westminster-based aluminum can manufacturing company said growth in demand for beverage cans in North America, red hot just a few months ago, has gone flat and isn't expected to rebound significantly for years. Not expected to rebound for years. That's how badly the boycott has affected Bud Light. And when you're in manufacturing, you need to plan your capacity years in advance because it takes a long time to build these plants. There are so many considerations. There's so much money you have to get together and plan out. Equipment, construction, it's very complicated, which is why they don't even consider shutting down a plant unless they know there will not be future business for that plant for years to come, because the cost of shutting down a plant, as opposed to just having one or two kind of bad years, is almost as expensive sometimes as building a new plant. It's millions and millions of dollars. Ball Corporation says it has adequate can-making capacity among its network of U.S. plants, and it won't need production from the 52-year-old plant it leases in Kent, Washington, where 121 employees will be laid off. The plant has 2 production lines making 12-ounce aluminum cans there. The company plans to close it in early 2024. We know now it's going to be in February, leaving it with another 20 plants in the country. So why does it have all these plants in the first place? Why do they need 20 plants? If you service your customers and you do a lot of business with them, having these like locally, regionally located manufacturing plants can save on shipping, it can save on turnaround time, it can be very effective. The trick is to build a big enough plant where you get good economies of scale and you can grow with your customers locally. It helps keep out competitors. Economy of scale is a proportionate saving in costs gained by an increased level of production. However, if you do too much production, even in an efficient manufacturing plant, you can get diseconomies of scale. Diseconomies of scale happens when a business expands so much that the cost per unit increase. It takes place when the economies of scale no longer function. So if they have a certain size facility and they can produce up to a certain limit of production, if they try to overdo it and produce more than they really are set up to produce, costs start to go up. Whether it's extra labor, overtime labor, pushing the equipment to produce more than the equipment can really produce, having to work on weekends when it might be inefficient. There's any number of reasons why, if this company has 20 plants and they think they're going to actually need more capacity in the future, why they shouldn't do too much with those 20 plants. Keep the other plants. Don't close your plant in Kent, Washington, when you know the business is going to be coming back in a year or two, but they know it's not coming back. And that's how sometimes I have some extra insight into these things, because I'm familiar with some of these manufacturing concepts. And now you understand why they're doing what they're doing. Ball is also permanently canceling plans to build a $290 million can plant in North Las Vegas, and it's putting off construction of a large plant it announced in 2021 it would build in North Carolina. That project won't happen until 2028. But we feel really confident about not having to spend the capital to match demand growth for an extended period of time, maybe 3 to 4 years, said Dan Fisher, CEO of Ball Corporation. Ball expects that closing the Kent, Washington plant will cut company operating costs by $20 to $30 million, said Scott Morrison, Ball Corp Chief Financial Officer. The reduction in aluminum can production capacity can be more than offset by increasing volumes at its more efficient plants. And that's what happens when they lose a lot of business. They can make it up somewhere else. If they know they're not going to have so much demand that they're going to get stuck with these diseconomies of scale where they're overwhelmed trying to produce for their customers, there's no reason to invest in new plants, and there's no reason to keep weaker plants even in business. All of it starts to spiral down very quickly. Their North Carolina project is an 800,000 square foot beverage can factory that Ball planned to build on the grounds of Concord, a former tobacco industry campus being remade into a hub for the beverage industry. State economic development officials there projected Ball's plant would involve an investment of $383 million and would create 220 new jobs by 2024 with an average annual minimum salary of $70,500. That growth will be postponed for at least 4 years. This is just a fraction of the damage caused by Bud Light. Remember these glass plants closing down. From the New York Post, glass bottling plants forced to shut down, leaving 600 employees jobless. A glass bottling company impacted by Bud Light's botched promotion with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney will close down 2 of its locations, laying off more than 600 employees as the beer brand continues to grapple with staggering financial losses and declining sales. The Ardagh Group, a global glass producer who contracts with the Anheuser-Busch Company, announced they will be closing their plants in North Carolina and Louisiana in July, putting roughly 645 employees out of a job. And you know those were good jobs. The bottling company did not reveal the reason for the move, but an investigation by WRAL reportedly found that the plants were shuttering because of tanking Bud Light sales. As retailers, distributors, bars, and contracted companies feel the wrath of nationwide boycotts over the controversial Bud Light partnership that celebrated Mulvaney's 365 days of girlhood. Workers at both bottling plants have reportedly noticed decreased production after Mulvaney's video announcing the collaboration on social media gained public attention in April. A machine repair mechanic who worked for the glass company reported the drop in demand forced the Louisiana and North Carolina plants to put some of their machines offline, which he attributed to the Bud Light situation. In an internal Ardagh Group memo, executives said they plan to shut down 2 plants due to slow sales with Anheuser-Busch InBev. They're shutting down plants permanently and letting people go permanently over this boycott. That was in July. Remember, the boycott just started in April. That's how bad it is. It's always tough to see people lose their jobs. Some people have worked for these companies for years and years. It's the only good job local to them. And all of them are suffering because of this ridiculous, inappropriate promotion with Dylan Mulvaney. And it wasn't an accident. They were doing it intentionally. And because Anheuser-Busch has still not apologized to customers, obviously they don't care what their customers think and they don't care what happens to their employees. Or even these employees that work for one of their contractors that had literally nothing to do with this. They're just losing their jobs. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.